Call of Duty is manipulating you. And I'm not talking about matchmaking or anything like that. I genuinely don't think there's enough players in every playlist in every region for all of those conspiracy theories about skill-based matchmaking and engagement-optimized matchmaking to possibly be true. But all of the Call of Duty games are designed to keep you playing for as long as possible by trapping you into compulsion loops. So compulsion loops are something that I talked about in my last video. Go check that out if you want more of a full explanation. I did a video about Grey Zone Warfare and Escape from Tarkov. It was really interesting. You should watch it. Compulsion loops are an idea in psychology. It's a thing that your brain can easily get trapped in that makes you want to do things that otherwise you wouldn't want to do. So they come in 3 stages, and the first stage is anticipation. So the idea that you can see the path to a potential reward. And then you have a challenge or an activity, a thing that you need to do in order to get that reward. That's the second stage. And then the third stage is the reward itself. You get given a reward, and then your brain makes you feel good by releasing a load of dopamine. Now, psychologists realized that the dopamine is actually created in the anticipation stage. So if you can get someone to just keep thinking that they're going to get some great reward, they will surprisingly go quite far to do whatever you want them to do in order to be able to get that reward and get that dopamine release. And the longer you can delay that reward, the longer you can delay that gratification, the more they're willing to put up with stuff, because the greater the reward's going to be. And then as soon as they get that reward, the dopamine, the feel-good chemicals in your brain kind of just wear off after a while, and then they immediately want the next bit. Because dopamine isn't addictive as a chemical, but the feeling it gives you can be quite addictive. People get addicted to chasing after that feeling. And that's kind of what a lot of video games are trying to make you do, including Call of Duty. Game developers can use these compulsion loops and do kind of factor them into their designs to keep you playing the games for hours and days and weeks and months and even years, because that's how they get their revenue. Games that are free to play are basically explicitly designed to get you to play as long as possible, because then you're more likely to spend on all of their optional microtransactions. That's kind of what they need to get you to do. It's no good having an incredible free-to-play game that someone plays for 10 hours then never picks up again, because that person isn't going to be funding your company. But if you can trap someone in a compulsion loop, and then they're spending hours and days and weeks and months playing your game, and then you keep telling them, oh, there's another good reward just around the corner, they'll do quite a lot to try and get to that reward, maybe even spending some of their real money. So how does Call of Duty use these compulsion loops? There's so many different ways. The developers are just kind of throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, to see what grabs you into a compulsion loop, because they only need to get you in one of these methods to have you hooked, so then you'll just keep on playing the game and obviously potentially spend money in a store. So in this video, I'm going to go through the 5 main ways I think Call of Duty uses compulsion loops to trap you in the game. So the first and most basic Call of Duty compulsion loop is XP, and it's the oldest one. It's the one that's been in Call of Duty for a very long time, since at least Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. And basically it's an XP grind. You play the game, you get XP, that helps you to level up, and every time you level up, you'll get some kind of reward. Maybe you'll unlock a new weapon, maybe you'll unlock a new grenade or a new kill streak or something. It used to be that you'd just level up from 0 to like 50 or 55, something like that. And along the way, you would just get tons and tons of rewards until eventually you were done. And you can see how that fits quite nicely into the idea of a compulsion loop. You see the anticipation of what the next reward is, and normally the game would display that to you, saying this is what you're going to unlock next. And then you would go through the activity, so you'd play the game, and then you'd get the reward of unlocking the thing, and that would make you feel good. And then your brain would immediately be like, oh, I know you're tired, I know you want to go to sleep, but just look at what the next reward is. You could probably just play like one more game, and then you'll get the next reward. So you're like, oh, okay then, brain, I'll play another game. And then you do that, and then you get the next reward, and you feel good about it for a moment, and then you see, oh, there's another reward. Well, we could just play one more game, why not? And then you just keep on going, and before you know it, you've gone through all like 55 levels in the first night that the games come out. You're absolutely exhausted, but you're done. You've kind of finished that compulsion loop. There's no more content in the game for you. But then the games had something called prestige mode, or at least the older games did. And so you'd have prestige mode where it'd say, hey, you could do that all over again. And a lot of people might look at that, and I remember thinking to this myself when I first saw Prestige mode, why would I want to do that? I've just unlocked all of the stuff I wanted. I've now got all the stuff I can play with. But then there's a part of your brain that's like, yeah, but didn't it feel good when you were unlocking stuff? Didn't it feel nice when you kept unlocking stuff? You could have that feeling all over again. And if you do it all over again, you'll get a calling card that you'll probably never use. So then you'd do it again. And then you could do it again, and then you could do it again. And eventually you'd get to a Prestige Master, and then you could show off to all of your friends who 100% wouldn't care at all that you'd got the Prestige Master emblem or calling card or whatever it was. And that was kind of something that just worked in the games for a long while, that you wanted to keep leveling up, so you'd keep on playing because that would level you up. For some reason, and I genuinely don't understand why, they seem to have actually ruined this compulsion loop lately. They got rid of the old prestige mode, so now you just keep on leveling up, and your level is a big number that doesn't seem to mean anything. You don't really unlock anything via your level, as far as I know anymore. I'm like level 500 or something at the moment. I have no idea what it means. I have no idea what the maximum level is. I'm sure there's still some people who, every time a new season comes out, they're like, yeah, I'm going to get up to the max level as quick as possible and get back into that compulsion loop. But I think for me, like most people, they don't really care about XP or your level anymore. Call of Duty's kind of moved on to other compulsion loops that seem to work better than that. So the second compulsion loop, and probably the most obvious one for most of you watching, is the Battle Pass. And this is a weird one because it's one you pay to be a part of. The game is manipulating you into playing the game for longer, and you pay for the privilege. So you pay like, I don't know what it is, like £10 or something like that, to buy a battle pass, and it shows you 100 different things that you can unlock, and then says you need to play the game to unlock these. And a part of your brain should probably think, but I just paid for them, shouldn't I just get them straight away? And it's like, oh no, it'll be fun, you can unlock them. So then it goes back to just like what it was like with the old leveling system, where you keep on playing the game, you'll unlock something, you'll unlock a sticker or something, I don't know. Occasionally you'll unlock something cool, like an operator skin or a blueprint that you want or a new weapon, and you need to put a lot of time in order to get those things. And one of the cleverest things in my mind about the Battle Pass is that it takes about 45 hours, no matter who you are. I don't think they ever advertised this, but at least back in Modern Warfare 2019, which was the last time I checked any of this, you could play the game for about 45 hours, doing absolutely anything, and it would unlock everything in the Battle Pass. So you could be the worst player, you could be just playing in multiplayer, playing Search and Destroy, but getting no kills at any point, and it would take you about 45 hours of in-game time to do it. Or you could be playing Warzone, you could be an absolute demon, getting 30 kills per game, and it would still take you about 45 hours of in-game time to do it. It's the same for everyone, because they've realised that 45 hours across 2 months, which is how long a Battle Pass lasts, is quite a long time for someone to play a video game. You know, that's going on for what? Nearly an hour a day. You could have a few days off if you're really good. Most people who play the game probably don't play Call of Duty for an hour every single day. So for them, that's quite a lot of time, and they might get towards the end of a Battle Pass, towards the end of a season, and be like, oh, I'm only 10 levels away from finishing it. I'm at 90%. There's a big 90% on the menu. So I'll put in another, you know, however many hours that's going to take in order to try and complete it, in order to try and get it done. Because otherwise, those things that I've already paid for, the fancy skins that you get for finishing the Battle Pass, I'm going to lose them. Which seems absolutely ridiculous that that's a thing that can happen. You can buy these skins, buying the Battle Pass, and then not get them just because you didn't play the game enough. So it kind of traps you into constantly thinking, oh, well, I'm quite close to getting the next level on the Battle Pass. I'll just play a little bit more, and then I'll get the thing that I want. And the Battle Pass is filled with rubbish. I mean, like the last Battle Pass especially, I feel like maybe the skin you get 100, which had kind of the wolf head on, was pretty cool. I don't think anything else was interesting in the entire Battle Pass. But it doesn't really matter because the rewards themselves don't matter. The reward really is that little feel-good feeling you get from the dopamine when you level the Battle Pass up. And people want that so bad, they're even willing to spend more money to get the Black Cell version so they can skip that time playing. They can skip the first 20 levels, so that's a fifth of it. They can get that stuff quicker. They can get those rewards quicker. And anyone who's got Black Cell will probably know you don't get the same feeling from it. Because you don't have the anticipation phase of the compulsion loop, you don't feel anything really when you just get the first 20 rewards. You just flick through them super quickly. They don't matter to you whatsoever. So by spending more on the Black Cell thing, you're actually cheating yourself out of some of the good feeling of leveling up, which is super strange, but they've managed to get people doing it because they just present it in such a nice way. Every time you level up, every time you unlock something, there's some fancy sounds, there's a fancy animation. It's all to try and get you to feel like, hey, yeah, you've achieved something. And it doesn't matter that what you've achieved doesn't mean anything and that you're going to forget about it in a second, because there's always going to be something else to move on to. And for the vast majority of players, you're only really going to finish the battle pass just before a new one comes out and they drop the trailer for the next one. They're like, hey, look at all the stuff you can do now. And this constantly happens. You know, there's constantly new seasons. Every 2 months, without fail, there is a new season. There's another battle pass. There's another 100 things to earn. There's another 45 hours of the game to play. It's a really clever way of tricking you to sort of keep going with it because you've spent money in it. You've invested. You've invested some of your own money into it. So it feels like you're sort of letting yourself down if you don't finish it. So you just keep on playing the game. Now, the third compulsion loop is probably the one that Activision cares about the most, and that's the store. Obviously, that's where they make their money, from people that just play Warzone, from people that just play the free-to-play modes, and I'm willing to bet they make more money from the store than they do from just selling the game for the multiplayer and campaign and zombies and stuff like that. The store is, I think, everything to Call of Duty at the moment in terms of funding the next games, paying the developers, and, you know, paying exorbitant salaries to the executives who are the ones making some of these decisions. So they want you to spend money. That's the main thing. When you go into the store, they're doing everything they can to make it seem like it's a good idea for you to spend money. And the things in the store clearly aren't worth the money. Like, if anyone thought about it, if anyone thought about the fact that, you know, a player skin in a first-person game being like £20, that's just clearly not worth the money at all. So how do they get you to buy them? Well, they do things like, hey, that battle pass you've just got, you actually get a load of COD points doing that battle pass, and you don't just get enough to buy the next battle pass, which, you know, will get you to keep on playing for another 45 hours, but they actually give you a few extra. So you're always going to have some COD points in your account. And then you might slowly build that up over time and start seeing bundles in the store where you think, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that. That looks pretty fancy. The presentation of stuff in the store is very cool. There's lots of stuff tied to other IPs. You've seen lots of streamers and content creators using these fun, cool skins and having a laugh with their friends about them. So you'll think, I'm not too far off them now. I can just spend a little bit of my own money and then I'll be able to get that reward. And I've already put some of the activity in. You know, I've already spent some of the time doing the battle pass, so I might as well just top it up with a little bit of my own money in order to unlock that stuff. And then you'll buy it and you get that reward, you get that dopamine hit, you feel good about yourself because you just bought the fun thing. And the fact that you don't really enjoy the thing you bought, and I don't think anyone really enjoys the skins because you don't really see them when you're playing. You might have a laugh with them for a night or two, but definitely not, you know, 20 quid's worth of value from them. Doesn't really matter, because then you're going to have a few COD points left over, because obviously the amount that stuff costs in the store is never the same amount as the bundles of COD points you can buy or that you earn in the battle pass. So you'll always have a few left over, and then there'll be a new bundle that's released. There'll be a new thing people are talking about, a new exciting thing that's in trailers or being advertised on social media. So then you'll start thinking, oh, I felt quite good when I bought that last thing. Maybe I'll start saving up towards this next one by doing the battle passes, or maybe I'll start putting some of my real money in. They're counting on that idea that you're going to want to skip the activity of spending ages doing battle passes. They can make themselves feel like they're the good guys because you can earn COD points, but it just takes an incredibly long time to be able to even earn one bundle. But you can skip that just by spending some of your own money. And that's what they want you to do. They want you to put some of your own money in, so then you can buy some of these bundles, feel good for a little bit, and then start thinking about the next one. The fourth compulsion loop in Call of Duty is the one that I think people are most aware of when they're playing it. The thing that people who get involved in it know that this is exactly what they're doing, that they're being conned into spending ages in a video game, and that's the camo grind. The camo grind, for anyone who doesn't know, for anyone who's watching this hasn't played much Call of Duty, if you complete challenges with weapons, you unlock special camos for them. Camouflages, skins to put on the gun to make them look different. If you complete entire categories of guns, like all the assault rifles, you complete all the challenges for them, then you get a special one for all of those guns. If you complete all of them for all of the guns, then you get a mastery camo. And for lots of people, when they buy a new Call of Duty game, that's the main thing they want to do. They want to complete all of the challenges for all of the guns so they'll get a special camouflage. And again, it's obviously not worth it. If you think about the amount of time you spend to try and unlock those camos, it's definitely not worth it by the end. You've probably spent dozens, if not hundreds of hours trying to do it. And anyone who's completed a camo grind will know a lot of it's not fun. A lot of it involves running around on Shipment or on Nuketown, doing the same things again and again with guns you don't particularly like using, just to try and get through them so you can get some of the guns you do like using. And at the end of it, you've got a camouflage, and if you're like me, a bit of an empty feeling wondering what you just did with your life. What have you just spent hundreds of hours doing to get a camouflage, and then you'll probably go buy something else off the store where that camo looks terrible on it, so you'll use something else. It's just a weird compulsion loop that people buy into. And it takes, as I said, hundreds of hours for most people to complete one of these, and then they'll often extend it by releasing new weapons so you can grind all of the camos on them, and then they'll unlock new mastery camos where they'll say, oh, okay, now you've done all of the proper mastery camos, now we'll do special ones per gun if you manage to get like 10,000 kills with it or something like that. And people who already feel like, oh, well, I've already spent dozens of hours doing that, I might as well complete the set, I might as well keep on going, are then going to spend even longer on it, even longer in a game, so then they're more likely to, you know, spend some money on it. And I think people who have done a lot of camo grinds in the past feel like they almost kind of need to keep on going with them because, you know, they've done them in the other games. If they then decided on this next game not to bother, that's almost like admitting all of the others were worthless, which they definitely were, but then that's kind of admitting to yourself that you wasted all of that time. So maybe if you do this one, you'll feel like, oh, I'm the sort of person that always gets the camo grind. Now it's worthwhile to me. Maybe I didn't waste that time. I think that's the kind of mentality that's going on there. But the camo grind is very clearly a waste of time. It's just a way to kind of give yourself a sense of a little bit of progress for the more hardcore COD players, the people who will immediately blast through all of the XP or the levels, the people who will burn their way through the battle pass in the first week that a new season comes out. It gives them something else to do that is going to take a very long time, and they can always just arbitrarily add something new. They can always just be like, oh, you can get an all black camo if you get 1,000,000 kills with this gun. They can just add that on quickly and then give those people something else to do. Now, the final compulsion loop in Call of Duty, I think, is the most controversial one, and the one that I think a lot of people probably don't even realize that they're on it at all, that that's a way that the game has trapped them. And that's getting better at the game. Now, I'm going to start off with a statement that you might disagree with, but it's kind of fundamental to the rest of this argument. Being good at Call of Duty doesn't matter. It fundamentally just doesn't matter. No one else who doesn't play Call of Duty will ever care that you're good at Call of Duty in any way. The vast majority of people, like 99.9% of people who are really good at Call of Duty, won't make money from it. I know people say, oh, but if you get good, you can win tournaments and stuff. But most people won't be making money from it, and they won't be making money through content creation or anything like that. They're just spending a very long time getting good at what is essentially a toy. You know, they're getting very, very good at a game. Maybe they enjoy it, and that's, you know, worthwhile in itself. The idea that maybe they enjoy the process of getting good at something. But the skill in itself isn't important. The skill in itself, like being a good Call of Duty player, isn't a valuable thing that you need to spend a lot of time on. But Activision doesn't want you to know that, because people spending a lot of time trying to get good at Call of Duty are people spending a lot of time in a game where they might be tempted to spend a bit more money. They might start thinking, hey, well, I already spent thousands of hours in this game. I might as well spend a bit of money on it. Why not? So the way this works is everybody who plays Call of Duty sees players who are better than them. So it might be normal players in games will just see people in their lobbies. You know, people in multiplayer see the people at the top of the leaderboard, people who have way more kills than them or way more time on the objective or whatever, or maybe they've got some of those mastery camos and things like that. People in Warzone will see the people who they spectate who win the game, see people who, when they spectate, they've got like 20 kills or something like that. Then those people who are already doing quite well in the game, they'll be comparing themselves to streamers and content creators, and they'll see people going on nuke runs, and they'll see people who are regularly dropping 20 kills in a game, and they'll be like, oh, I could be a bit like them. I need to just keep practicing to be a bit more like them. And then those content creators and streamers will see pro players who, literally do it as a job, being super good at the game. And they'll be like, oh, okay, I'm not quite as good as those people. I'm not quite as good as the CDL players or the people who are winning World Series of Warzone or whatever it is. And then even those people who are winning World Series of Warzone will be looking at other people getting records or other people doing things in other game modes that are better than them. Or maybe they'll just, 1 week they won't do as well and they'll see other people overtake them on the top 250 player leaderboard. And Call of Duty makes a big deal out of this. Like Activision make a big deal of this. Through their socials, they celebrate the top 250 Warzone players. They push the CDL and the pros and tournaments. They share clips from really, really good players and they promote people who can do things that are pretty incredible in the game. So you're always seeing people who are better than you at the game. You're always seeing people who are performing at that super high level. So you're always going to think you're not quite average. You're not doing as well as you should be. And if you just spent a little bit more time practicing, if you just spent a bit more time in the game, maybe you could be as good as them. So then you kind of have this feeling, well, I don't want to be below average, so I'm just going to play another game to do a little bit better. When JGod did some research, he found that the average Warzone player had a kill def of about 0.8. That means average Warzone players are often just getting 1 or sometimes 0 kills in a game. But if you go online, you'd never think that was average for a Warzone player. You'd think that was well below average. People online talk as if 1.5 or 2 kill death rates are just kind of average, the bare minimum. That you should, in a game of Warzone, be getting 10 to 20 kills in a game. Otherwise, you're not an average player. And that can make a lot of people kind of feel inadequate, that they need to do a little bit better. It feels obtainable because it seems like everyone's talking in a way that that's kind of normal to be able to get 10 to 20 kills. It's normal to have a kill def of like over 1.5, but it's not. It's incredibly low odds. But they're the people who are talking about the game, they're the people who are making content about the game, and importantly, they're the people who Activision are promoting, they're the people that Activision are showing off across their social media. You don't often get Call of Duty saying like, hey, look at this player, they're having a good time. That seems pretty rare, but it's like, hey, look at this player, they just killed 10 people with a pistol and a throwing knife. That's more the kind of vibe they go for. So that's obviously going to try and get people into this compulsion loop where the anticipation is, hey, I can see all of these other people are doing really well in Warzone. I'm not doing really well, so I'm going to practice, I'm going to play a bit more until I do better. So the challenge part of it is that person playing again and again and again, and then eventually they'll get the reward of, maybe getting their personal best, maybe winning a game of Warzone, just having a really good day. And then that'll make them feel better, and then they'll immediately think, oh, but now I've seen other players who are better than me, so I need to try and chase up to them. And they'll keep on getting hooked in this sort of pattern of just constantly playing and trying to get better. But with this compulsion loop, it's a bit different to the others, because it's a lot less controllable by Activision, and it can cause some pretty serious problems. Because obviously, all of these people who are doing incredibly well at Call of Duty, they might not be being completely honest. Obviously, there's some content creators that might use VPNs, or they might use things like that Warzone agent program to try and get themselves easier lobbies. They might try and manipulate things a little bit, doing that two-boxing stuff to try and make the games easier for themselves, so then they can present gameplay to you being like, hey, look at how easy this game is. It's easy to get tons and tons of kills. And you, as somebody watching, if they've kept that a secret, might think, oh, well, that's not how I play. And you might try to get up to their level, but it could be quite frustrating because you just can't get there because your games are just nothing like theirs. Plus, most content creators and streamers are playing like, 6 hours a day. They're playing a lot more than normal people who have full-time jobs. So, well, full-time jobs that aren't content creation or streaming. And so you're never going to be able to catch up to them, or it's very unlikely that you're ever going to be able to catch up to them. So while you have the anticipation of being as good as them, and you can do the challenge part of it where you're trying to get as good as them, you're never going to get to that reward. And that could make you feel pretty terrible. That can make you frustrated. That might even lead you to do things like cheating in Warzone, because then you can take a little shortcut to getting those high kill counts, winning the games, whatever it is, getting nukes completed or whatever it is in the game that you're trying to aim for. And then that's going to encourage more people to cheat, and then that makes the game even harder for other people. And then as people get frustrated, the people who maybe aren't as good at the game and aren't willing to cheat might quit playing because they're just not having any fun. They're not as good as the people that they've been told are just normal average players. they're far below that, they might think, well, what's the point of playing this? I just feel bad about myself when I'm playing. So they stop. That makes the average player base better because the worst players are stopping and the best players have now been playing for like 4 years or something, of Warzone that is. So then the average player base is getting harder. That means more people are struggling to keep up. More people are going to be tempted into cheating, or more people are going to be tempted into using VPNs and stuff like that to make themselves look good. More people are going to be dropping off, and that average player skill will keep getting higher and higher to the point where this doesn't really work anymore, because it's not like anyone can pick up Call of Duty, see people who are being promoted by Activision as being really good at the game, you know, people completing nuke contracts and stuff like that. They can't just pick up the game with their friends and be like, oh yeah, if we practice a bit, we'll be as good as that. It's just never going to happen at this point. And that means they're going to get into that sort of stage where they're building up lots of dopamine, but they're never getting the release, never getting the feel-good feeling. They're just going to end up getting frustrated. And that kind of sucks, and I genuinely think that's why a lot of people are quitting the game. And that's where you see a lot of people complaining about things like skill-based matchmaking, or hit reg, or latency, or server issues, or anything like that. I think a lot of it comes from people who just feel like they should be better than they are, because that's what they're being told by Activision, that's what they're being told by content creators, that's what they're being told by online communities. And they can't quite reach it because either it's impossible or it's just much harder than those other people make it look. So then they're just left frustrated wondering what's wrong with them. And if they don't want to admit, you know, they're not as good at the game or whatever else it is, they're going to start finding something else to blame, and you get all of these crazy conspiracy theories. So I think that compulsion loop, while the idea behind it works, you know, if you can convince people that getting good at Call of Duty is something they want, then you can get them to keep spending absolutely ages in the game. You can get them to spend hours and hours, days, weeks, months in the game. That makes sense. What's actually happening is it's causing quite a frustrating experience for the vast majority of kind of normal gamers. Anyway, that's all just my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think about the compulsion loops in Call of Duty. Let me know what you think about the ways Call of Duty is trying to make you play. I had some interesting comments on the last video where some people were saying, hey, this is fine, this is just what life's like, or this is just what gaming's like. I personally disagree. I think there's a lot of art and entertainment that focuses more on something being meaningful, like meaningful content is possible. I think it doesn't just have to be a mindless compulsion loop, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. I think it's an interesting discussion to have. But the main thing I would take away from this is next time you're playing Call of Duty, just think about why you're playing it. If you're not having any fun, if you're just doing it because you want to unlock something, or you're just doing it because you want to eventually get some other kind of reward, maybe just take a break, because whatever that reward is, whatever that unlock is, definitely isn't worth your time.